안녕하세요, Cloud입니다. Hey guys, Cloud here. Welcome back to another episode of Cloud's Korean Podcast. In this episode, I wanted to talk about context and how when you're trying to learn vocabulary, you need to know the context in which that vocab word is used in, or else you can't really use it, even if you know what it means. And I'll give a few examples of that. An example that comes to me at the top of my head is I don't remember what the conversation was about, but I was talking about just news reporters and how they report things. Well, if you look at the dictionary, or at least I learned that the word for report, to report something, is 신고하다, which is only used, or it's mainly used when you report something to the police, not when a reporter reports something. And I came to the sentence, and as you know in Korean, the verb comes at the very end, so I wanted to say something like, yeah, and the announcer reported something, or something was reported. I came to use the word 신고하다, and then I stopped, and I was like, I can't use that word, because I understood the context in which that word was used. So I ended up just saying the English word for it, because, and I brought it up, saying, hey, what other word could I possibly use in this situation, because I know I can't use 신고하다. Now, had I not learned the context in which that word is used, and I just looked up in a translator or in a dictionary, and that's how I learned it through like a vocab list or something like that, I wouldn't have known, and I would have used 신고하다, and most likely my Korean partner would have laughed or just not understood what I said. But they most likely would have, but they would have laughed. At least that's what I think would have happened. The point that I'm trying to make is that you can't translate word for word. It almost never works. And that's why a lot of times you see that translators give really, really funny or really incorrect translations. I remember one time I saw a post, or like a sign that said in Arabic, الرجال مواقف, which is, it makes complete sense in Arabic. But then in English, it said men are parking, which makes no sense. Ad-rijal means men, and mawaqif does mean parking, but it also means like our situations, or basically what it's trying to say is that men are in certain situations, i.e. like it's certain situations that when men have to stand up and actually, be a man in those situations, and when you're in that situation, that's when you're a man. If that makes any sense. I know it's two words in Arabic, but it's 100% understood. Now in English, if you were to translate word for word, well, mawaqif can have multiple meanings. So if you learned just through a vocab list that mawaqif means parking, well, you're translating it as men are parking, and you wouldn't understand. And if you tried to speak it in English and say men are parking, translating from Arabic, then you would be quite off. Now, how do we remedy this? Well, one thing that I used to do is I would take the vocabulary word and I'd ask someone to make a sentence with it, or show me the context in which it's used, or I would ask them to compare it to a different word. So when I would learn a word like 되게 in Korean, which means like a lot or extremely, and I learned the word like 너무, which also can mean a lot, I would ask one of my Korean friends or Korean language exchange partners to give me different situations in which each one is used, so now I have that context behind it. Oh, so this one's used in this situation, while that one's used in that situation. Sometimes it's not as obvious, like when do you use 면되다 versus 도되다, like 가도돼 and 가면돼. I mean, then there's nuance there. It exists in English, but honestly it doesn't exist in Arabic. I guess it does based on context, but not in the words you would use. But the point I'm trying to make is I would have them write sentences for me or explain to me the situations, or I would look up pictures. So if I would learn a new word like, I don't know, pinu, which is pretty straightforward, but I would Google it, or I would Naver search it, or whatever, and I would look at the images, and I tried to see, okay, so this is what, it's soap. I guess that's not a very good example, but I would do that for every single word that I learned. Going back, would I learn vocabulary the same way? Do I learn vocabulary the same way? No. At some point, I think it's important for you to learn vocabulary from a list just because it's faster. It's not more efficient, but it's definitely faster just to learn 30 words a day versus going through conversations and learning grammar at the same time as listening, at the same time as speaking, at the same time as vocabulary. It's just a lot to do. So I think that the pictures definitely helped. Another thing that helped is if the pictures didn't make sense, I would actually ask about that word. And 9 out of 10 times when I couldn't understand the meaning of the word from the picture, it was because that word is not used very often. I can't think of a word off the top of my head. I was thinking, but I can't think of a word. But sometimes they would ask me, wait, what does this word even mean? Like, what? So I think the pictures was a very good idea. I definitely think that having someone show you what context is used in is important, so you don't end up saying men are parking.